Liaisons. The Enterprise is scheduled to meet with a new race, but it doesn't turn out to be the experience they expected.
We start out with Worf dealing with a wardrobe malfunction when Riker comes in to tell him to just go outside already. They're wearing fancy dress uniforms to meet with some Yaren ambassadors. I hope I said that right.
Me too. In the shuttle bay, they greet ambassadors Loquel and Byleth. This is the first interaction these aliens have ever had with the Federation, and they're going to be on the Enterprise for 7 days while Picard goes back to their homeworld.
And even though the others are wearing those dress uniforms, Picard is just wearing a zip-up sweatshirt, and it's not even zipped up.
The one ambassador, Loquel, is played by Paul Eiding, who has a very impressive list of voice acting credits, not the least of which is Colonel Campbell from Metal Gear Solid.
Your top priority now is to destroy Metal Gear itself.
Perceptor from the Transformers movie, the good one.
Is there a good one?
Yes, the 86 one is sweet.
Blaster! Ultra Magnus sends orders to contact Optimus Prime on Moonbase 1!
I also recognized him as Eldaris from StarCraft.
Entaro Adun, Executor. I am Judicator Aldaris.
Loquel gets assigned to Troy, and Byleth is assigned to Riker, but he instead demands to be assigned to Worf. And he's very curt and rude, and I could tell this was going to be a really funny episode.
In 10 Forward, Troy talks to Loquel about food, and immediately corrupts him by telling him that the only food worth eating is dessert.
Meanwhile, Byleth is being a jerk, and demands that Worf bring him different food, despite Beverly trying to smooth things over.
So Worf finally goes over and stabs a big chunk of roast beast.
Then we get a very out-of-character moment, with Data acting really goofy, despite his emotions being cut off in the last episode.
He suggests Worf try to find common ground with Byleth, who Worf says is demanding, temperamental, and rude. And Data suggests that could be a starting point of similarity.
In the shuttle, Picard tries some small talk with the pilot, Voval, who really isn't giving him anything back. And Picard's facial expressions were pretty funny.
What's our ETA? 17 hours, 32 minutes.
They suddenly experience what Voval says is power failure caused by an energy disruption field. So they head toward a nearby M-class planet, which actually looks pretty good effects-wise when they fly over it, but turns into just another fake rock set when they crash land.
I like how they always say, there's an M-class planet nearby, which makes it sound like it could be far away, but it's freaking gigantic right in front of them and fills up their entire field of view. They're looking at all their computer screens for its location. Look out the window!
Voval ends up incapacitated on the ground, and Picard is unable to contact the Enterprise because of interference.
He says Voval may have a concussion, and it's impressive he knew enough about their physiology to make that determination.
Picard says he has detected a structure and is going to go out and try and find it. And while he walks outside, he takes his sweet-ass time.
And he's obviously never played Final Fantasy X, because anyone who went through the Thunder Plains would not have been struck by lightning.
And Picard is then dragged away by a mysterious figure.
Back on the ship, Worf is showing Byleth around engineering, who keeps interrupting him and grilling him for technical answers while belittling him, much to Geordi's amusement.
Troy walks Loquel through the halls, and he interrupts her tour to ask her to try his drink. She tries to say no because the desserts she had were a lot, even for her, but he is adamant, and when she tries to continue, he gets distracted by a child, which he has never seen before.
Troy explains that children are their offspring, but not how they actually, form and stuff.
I'm sure if Gene Roddenberry was still around, he would have had that be a whole scene.
Probably that whole episode, it would shift into a subplot of, Ambassador, why don't I show you how we procreate?
Loquel says his people emerge from birthing pods fully grown, and he asks the kid if he likes dessert, and they go to get some.
Because I'm sure his mom, who was wearing a Starfleet uniform, didn't have any official ship's duties or anything to do.
Yeah, she didn't even have any dialogue.
She's probably a speech coach on the Enterprise. On the planet, Picard wakes up in a rundown shelter with an electronic device attached to his abdomen, and a strange woman who doesn't say anything other than Voval is dead before leaving.
But after a commercial, she comes back, says her name is Anna, and tells Picard that she was a passenger on a Tyrellian ship when it crashed on that planet. And they are now in a storage container from the ship.
She says there's no one else on the planet. She doesn't know how long she's been down there, but Picard determines it's been 7 years based on the crash date.
And she tells him the thing on his side is a restrictor device that will keep his ribs in place while they heal.
Picard says they can use equipment on the shuttlecraft to contact Starfleet, but when he tries to move, she tells him to stay put.
So he asks her to go to the shuttle and bring back the communication equipment.
Back on the Enterprise, Worf is bitching about Byleth, saying he'll kill him and rip out his esophagus. And it's impressive he knew enough about their physiology to make that determination.
He requests a reassignment, but Riker rejects it.
And suggests loosening things up with a poker game.
Back on the planet, Picard is walking around, and he tries opening the door, but it's locked. Anna comes back and says she locked it for his protection against the dangerous animals outside.
She's retrieved the communication module from the shuttle, but reveals she cut it free by shooting it with a phaser, much to Picard's annoyance. So if she is so clueless, there was a chance she would have turned that phaser up to setting 16 and blown up the entire planet.
She talks about how much she wished for rescue to come, and how she considered jumping off a cliff when it never did.
I said she starts moping about being an idiot. Picard reassures her they'll be rescued, and then the music gets creepy, and she tells him she'll do anything she wants him to do, as long as he doesn't leave her.
She kisses him and tells him she loves him.
I suppose it was a good thing it wasn't Riker down there.
Picard finds a power cell that he thinks he can use to restart the shuttle's engines.
Anna reiterates that she loves him, but Picard focuses on how she doesn't really love him and explains the entire psychology behind it and why she would say that after being alone for so long, which A, was probably not the best use of his time, B, was probably not that smart, seeing as how she appeared unstable, and C, was such a romantic explanation that he risked her falling even more in love with him.
I don't think that you can really be in love with me.
I do love you.
I'm the first person you've seen in 7 years. I'm bringing you the hope of leaving this place. You could possibly be just a little confused right now.
Riker, Troy, Worf, Laquelle, and Byleth are playing poker. Byleth calls Worf's bluff, but when he throws in some chips, he grabs them from Worf's pile. And somehow Worf is apparently the only one who noticed that.
Well, I was thinking the others probably did, but they didn't want to cause an incident, so they didn't say anything.
Yeah, maybe.
There's a verbal confrontation, which quickly escalates into a physical one, much to Riker and Troy's horror, while Laquelle just sits there and eats chocolate at the table, which I thought was pretty good.
Riker ends up holding Worf back, while Byleth seems to have enjoyed the fight. He thanks Worf and walks off, saying he is going to document the experience.
Back on the planet, Picard says he's ready to take the power cell to the shuttle, but Anna says they need to wait a few more hours because it's not safe. He says they don't have a few more hours, and he also pulls off his electronic restrictor device, revealing he doesn't have any broken ribs at all.
He asks her how much else she has lied about, accusing her of damaging the communication equipment on purpose, and she admits that she did everything to keep him there and tells him that he should love her.
Then she forces herself on him and says now that they know more about each other and depend on each other, they should love each other.
She eventually says that she failed and runs off, locking him in the storage container.
He tries to force the door open. When he hears a voice outside asking if anyone's inside, he directs the voice to the door, and when it opens, it turns out to be Vaval, who is very much not dead, nor immobilized.
He closes the door, and Picard asks him how he is alive, instead of first saying, "Make sure that crazy woman doesn't lock us in." And Vaval says his species' metabolic rate slows when they are healing, which can resemble a state of death.
Vaval says he saw someone running away, and asks Picard if he thinks the woman will harm herself, so they both go to look for her.
They head out in opposite directions when they reach the cliff, and Picard finds her standing at the edge. He tells her that Vaval is alive and they can escape, but she says she'll jump unless he promises to love her.
He sees her necklace and recalls that her necklace fell off and broke when she ran out earlier. And then he wonders about the timing of Vaval's appearance, everything being very convenient, and tells her to jump.
Which would be taking a big chance if he was wrong.
He's killed people before in the show, we've seen it.
Yeah, that's true. Anna reveals herself to be Vaval, who says he is another ambassador. But if he made the necklace again out of a mirage or whatever, how did Picard pick up the first one?
Good question. The ambassador's mission was to study certain concepts of humanity and experience them themselves, and Vaval's assignment was to research love.
He says that Loquel was supposed to explore the concept of pleasure, even though it seems coincidental that he ended up with someone so obsessed with desserts, and Byleth was supposed to experience antagonism. But most of the alien species that we've seen before have had similar concepts of all of those things, so it seems weird that they've never encountered any of those before.
Voval says Anna actually existed at one point, and they found her logs and a detailed story of her crashing and falling in love with someone who found her, and those logs detailed pleasure, antagonism, and love.
He asks Picard if what they did was wrong, and instead of pushing him off the cliff, Picard says that in his culture, what Voval did would be considered a crime, also a concept with which he is unfamiliar.
Okay, good. You know, I have that in my notes too, that he should have pushed him off the cliff. How do these people live? What do they do? What does it look like on their home planet? Are they all just sitting in chairs doing nothing for their whole lives until they die? Back on the Enterprise, the other two ambassadors have finished their experiences as well and thank the crew for their participation.
Byleth says he spent 11 hours with Worf on the holodeck, which they both seem happy to have gone through, although Worf is very sore. And Loquel gives Troy a sample of their normal, bland food.
Picard says he found the ambassador's approach intriguing, and it was unfortunate that there wasn't a fourth ambassador there to experience dishonesty, because I didn't buy that shit for a second. Liaisons. Overall?
Production-wise, I didn't have any problems with this episode, apart from the fake rocks that we always get. But the ideas here were pretty dumb, and I will be very glad to be past this one. Some of the humor with Worf was pretty good, but I figured he and Byleth would end up being on friendly terms after they fought, and I was disappointedly proven correct. The dramatic stuff with Picard on the planet was essentially all thrown out the window when you find out that Anna isn't real, and that was the meat of the episode. Troy's corner of things didn't consist of a whole lot, and the fact that everyone was seemingly okay with everything once the ERN's motivations were out in the open was pretty lame. I was intrigued early on to find out more about these people and see why they were acting the way they were and how everybody was going to react to it. But this was one of those stories where the explanation for what was really going on ruined it and made the entire thing feel like a waste. I gave it a D.
I gave it a D-. This felt like a Season 1 episode. The whole, we're not going to reveal the obvious thing up front, because if we did, there wouldn't be an episode, is such a weak foundation. And I don't care how much you try to give it a message at the conclusion to try and salvage it, it's just dumb. There were too many tone shifts between the two halves of the story, and going back and forth between them so rapidly did not help. Some of the Enterprise scenes were less than 10 seconds before we cut back to the planet again. And every Anna scene had her coming in from the outside going, "What are you doing?" Which got old pretty fast. It happened at least 3 or 4 times. It's weird they couldn't come up with something else. The whole thing felt rushed, and the fact that the writers were trying to balance that plot with the ship plot made it feel even more rushed. Picard's stuff could have been stretched out over an entire episode and actually had a better resolution than the ridiculous one we got. But I did like that Anna was at one point a real person, and they were pulling from actual experiences. The actors playing the ambassadors did a good job, I guess, even though their characters were the definition of one-dimensional. And I wonder if and when someone from the Federation goes to their planet, are they going to spend their entire time there explaining feelings and what they're doing to everybody? Seriously, what do these aliens do? What does their life look like? I don't really have much more to say about this one. I thought it was pretty dumb, and I will also be glad when this one is gone.